players has started out, some of them opting out of the upcoming season. The Lakers need to find a replacement for starter Avery Bradley. Now it appears LeBron's former Cavs teammate J.R. Smith is going to come to the rescue. Is that how we frame it? He's 34. He's had some really high moments, some mystifyingly, inept moments when he just kind of was floating, mental lapses, I should say. But he's going to sign with the Lakers for the rest of the season, despite not playing since November of 2018. In or out? J.R. Smith will be a valuable addition for the Lakers title run. What do you got?
I mean, valuable may be a little bit heavy of a word, but I'm going to say in bounds of this, BT. Losing Avery Bradley, who started 44 of their 49 games, is a big blow, mostly because of the defensive acumen that he provided. And we had this conversation before, and every now and then he's going to score you 15 points. So Rajon Rondo, who's likely to take that role, is a little bit of a liability in a lot of ways. And so even if JR is not your starter, he's going to give you some depth, especially defensively, for this Lakers team. They don't need him to go score, but they do need him to be an active participant on both sides of the court.
So listen, I think they're going to get some offense out of him because he's got nice chemistry with LeBron James. They know each other's on-court tendencies. You know, whether it's J.R. Smith floating to the corner or LeBron the kick, the drive and the kick out to J.R. Smith. They've done that a lot there. So I think they'll be in sync. J.R. Smith is the kind of athlete where cardiovascularly and just in terms of weight, he always seems to be in pretty good condition. So I'm going to say inbounds here. Valuable's a little strong for my taste, but there's no other option, and he's going to get some minutes. Now, you're right. Avery Bradley started 44 games. He also had a single-digit PER. That's right. Which is obviously a pretty good representation of what you do on the court, all-encompassing. He's not quite the defender he was. I say inbounds. I think JR is not averse to big moments. Remember, before LeBron blocked Iguodala from behind, tracked him down, J.R. Smith shot them back into that game because the Warriors had a monster third quarter, as they always do, and J.R. Smith knocked down back-to-back triples and another one to get them back. They were down by double figures. He is not afraid, and that is a recipe for success. I'll say inbounds. Not saying that they win the championship, but again, based on the question, I think he's going to help them out. Shohei Ohtani burst onto the scene. This goes back to 2018 as a two-way star, banging 22 bombs while going 4-2 with a 3.5 ERA in 10 starts before suffering the UCL injury. Now, GM Billy Epler says Ohtani will return to his two-way role during the shortened season after the Japanese star served as just a DH a year ago. In or out, considering the shortened season, the Angels should wait until 2021 to put Ohtani back on the bump.
I'm going to say out of bounds of this, BT, because I think he's only going to get a limited number of starts if he is a starter, and if you have to bring him in as a relief pitcher, you can do that as well. So I'm going to say out of bounds of this. I think there's more value for him, especially given some of the uncertainties around a lot of other players. Don't know who's going to opt out, who's going to get sick, who's going to get hurt, etc. Keep all your options open. So I'm going to say out of bounds.
I agree with, pardon me, Teague, I'm sorry. I do agree with the out of bounds answer. I disagree with maybe having him pitch some relief here. I want a young player who's 22, who's coming off major reconstructive surgery. I want him to be very routine-oriented. I cannot mess around. He's a starter by trade. That's what I would do. But I would use, there's very few off days. There's 60 games in 66 days. Yeah. But, as I've said a few times here in the last week or so, each game represents 2.7 games, almost 3 when you weight the schedule. So if you can steal, even if it's 3 or 4, say if he gets, 7 or 8 starts and 2 or 3 are gems, and 3 or 4 are average and 2 of them he gets knocked around and really hammered. You know what? Those 2 wins with Rendon's addition and some other upgrades, Simmons at shortstop, the great Mike Trout, it could be enough to squeeze a wild card here. So I would say out of bounds, as long as it's not done recklessly, which it will not be. To Mack Brown, we mentioned him before. He's back in Chapel Hill, where he coached for 11 years before going to Texas and becoming a legend. Now, Brown has UNC rolling, at least on the recruiting circuit. They were 7-6 a year ago. Brown's crushing the offseason. The Heels already had a top 10 recruiting class with 11 4-star players, but they just landed a 5-star talent, the highest rated talent in a decade, and the top corner in the class in Tony Grimes. Right now, their composite rating for 24/7 Sports, 3rd overall in the country. That's amazing. In or out, UNC will become a legit national title contender under Mack Brown.
This is a hard one. I mean, I really like what he's doing with this program, but becoming a national title contender means you got to get through Miami if they ever get back in the Coastal Division. More importantly, you got to find a way to beat Clemson. And I don't know if that's doable in the near future for the 68-year-old head coach of North Carolina. So I'm going to say out of bounds, even though if it happened, I'd be thrilled.
I think that's a good answer. I'm not as worried about Miami, but the Clemson, Miami is formidable in theory forever until they're not. I do understand why you would say that, but the Clemson is the monster impediment that I just don't think that they'll ever get through. I mean, this is what Clemson does every year. Here we are making waves that Mack Brown's done it once with the Tar Heels, which, by the way, is a monster accomplishment for North Carolina football. I'm not trying to marginalize it, but this is who Clemson is every year. And also, let's not let the facts get in the way. You know, you go back to the last 6 years that Mack Brown has coached. It is what it is. 7 losses, 5 losses, 4 losses, 5 losses, and 6 losses. It's a fair amount of losses to bridge the gap from being somewhat irrelevant to a national title contender. Good for Tar Heel fans, but your number one sport will always be hoops. All right, Tiki, let's get to the final one here. Our good buddy Tom Izzo. Big boost. Must have been that Tiki and Tierney mojo.
Right.
All right, we had him on a couple of weeks back, and what do you know? They bang in the number one recruit, Amanji Bates, the 2022 number one recruit, the first sophomore to ever win the National Gatorade Player of the Year award. He's going to Michigan State, or at least he's committed to Michigan State. However, Bates left the door open to skipping college and going right to the G League, saying, I'm not sure what the future may hold, but as of now, I'll be committing to Michigan State University, end quote. All right, so barring extenuating circumstances, once a player signs a letter of intent to a college program, he should not be allowed to enter the NBA's pathway program.
This is interesting because Bates has not signed his letter of intent because he's only verbally committed to go to Michigan State. He can't. He's a sophomore. He can't do that until his senior high school season. So I'm going to, I think I might say inbounds to this, BT. If you make that commitment on paper on National Signing Day, because there's still 2, right? No, there's only 1 now. So on National Signing Day, if you sign that paper, then you should go. You should have made the decision to skip it before then. So I'm going to say inbounds with this one.
I'm going to say out of bounds, and I'll tell you why. Especially now, I'm not saying that Izzo's going to do. You're not going to do this to somebody like Bates, but that we're asking this question not just applying to Bates, but in general, totality, for other players who might do this. Here's the thing. Coaches will, when they can, they will over-recruit, and they will step right over you, whether it's a JUCO kid.
Good point.
So, again, it doesn't really apply to the Gatorade National Player of the Year. I understand that. But in other circumstances, they'll leapfrog you, and they'll leave you in the dust in a heartbeat.
Tune in next time for another edition of Inbounds or Out of Bounds with Tiki and Tierney.